Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face, my card making space, and yes, pulled out the bat light. It's officially on. I am starting my 2025 Halloween card series. For those that might be new, I started doing the series many years ago. I don't even remember how many years it's been. I will hopefully remember to post links in my blog post. That'll be linked below to all the previous series. And yeah, just for fun. These are going to be interspersed with all of my other videos. There is no schedule. I just pump them out whenever. And it's fun. I will be doing just a mix of like oldies but goodies, new Halloween products, whatever strikes my fancy. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm very glad that a lot of you enjoy it, including my little buddy, Scully here. So I like it, you guys. I like making Halloween cards just for funsies. So, as always, everything I use will be listed and linked in the description box below the video. And then as this series progresses, in the end screen at the end of the videos, I will have a link to the playlist and I'll just keep adding them because, like I said, they're going to be mixed in amongst all my other videos. It's not going to be just Halloween, even though that would be fun too, but and yeah, I'll link to maybe the previous year's Halloween series at the end. Oh, and I will also link with this one to my mushroom stems playlist because I pulled out that oldie but goodie favorite, which I just used in a very recent video. I'll link to that playlist in the end screen as well. So you can check that out if you're interested. Lots of ideas with that one. I've used it for previous Halloween cards as well, because why not? So I am done chatting, showing off my silly little skeleton hands, all the things. Let's get into making the card. Alrighty, here we go, folks. I started with a very loved, very well used oldie but goodie favorite. This is the Spiderweb background stamp. This is a red rubber on cling foam stamp. So I pulled out my grip mat out of my MISTI. So it gives the space for the rubber and the cling. And I've got a piece of Simon's black cardstock, and it's cut down to A2 size, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I use my anti-static powder tool on it. That just helps prevent the embossing powder from clinging to where I don't want. And then I just put a piece of low-tack tape there on the back to hold the cardstock in place because I wanted to stamp the web in like a kind of a specific spot for the most part. And I'm going to stamp the image with clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to use the glow-in-the-dark embossing powder. I've used this many times in many Halloween videos. The particular one I'm using today is Lawn Fawn. I will have links to the other options. There's Lawn Fawn has some, Brutus Monroe has some, Ranger has some, and Wow Embossing also makes a glow-in-the-dark powder. It's all the same stuff. It all works the same. I've tried multiple brands. They all work great. The thing to remember with glow-in-the-dark embossing powder is, if you've never used it before, it's a little weird because of that glow-in-the-dark like pigment in it. It doesn't stick as well to stamped images. I didn't really have a problem here, but I'm just going to mention that. Like, if you've just never worked with it before, it's a little bit finicky. Worth it. Totally worth it. And then when you melt it, sometimes it looks weird because it's glow in the dark. And I'll show you guys. I'll show you the guys the glow in the dark. So I poured the powder over, and then we're going to melt it with a heat tool. And the fun thing is, I don't think it'll show up in the actual footage, but in real life, sometimes when I'm melting with my heat tool, even the heat will activate and it'll almost look like it's glowing as you're melting it. That's just a bonus effect that I love. I love it. So, melt it with my heat tool, just like so. I just rotate it and get it all smooth and melted. And this, like any other embossing folder, if it looks dull and grainy, it just means you haven't melted it. It will still have a somewhat shiny finish. It's kind of a cross between a little bit matte and a little bit shiny. It's weird stuff. Anyway, once I was done melting it, I used my microfiber cloth to buff away all that excess anti-static powder. And then I'm going to turn my little black light on for you guys so you can see the glow. Did I do this multiple times while I was filming? Heck yeah, man. Like, this was just silly little things like this. This is why I love my Halloween series. Can you use glow in the dark for other stuff? Of course you can. You know, whatever you want to glow, do it. You know, but for Halloween stuff, it's just look at it. Look at it. How fun is that? So fun. So I did that. And then I'm going to, oh, and then I had to show the container because see, this is what I'm talking about. Glow in the dark embossing powder for the win, folks. So I then took, again, everything I'm using, all oldie but goodies. None of this is new. This is a Jolly Pumpkins little wafer die set that came out, I think this was last year. And I die cut it from, was it Clementine? Now my brain completely stopped what this orange cardstock was. Simon released this last year along with the yellow, which I did honey cardstock. Creamsicle. The orange is creamsicle. So I die cut the like faces of the pumpkins from creamsicle. And then the backing pieces from honey cardstock. And then I use my little sponge applicator tool, and I keep one just dedicated for clear ink so that nothing else gets on it. And you could just swipe the ink pad as well, but the sponge just is a little more convenient. And I dabbed on the clear ink on these little pieces that are going to go behind the pumpkin, and then poured over that glow in the dark embossing powder so that their faces are going to glow in the dark too. Love. And then, yeah, my first piece I was like holding with my fingers. I've talked about this. I don't recommend that, but I've got pretty much asbestos fingers, like the heat tool within reason. I don't like sit there and try and like melt my skin or anything. Again, be careful with these heat tools. Like, just be aware. And like I always remind people, keep them unplugged when you're not using them. Like, these things are industrial tools. So anywho, little reverse tweezers though, to hold, you know, when you're holding little pieces and heat embossing them. So I've melted that. And then for the actual like pumpkin faces, I am blending on some Pawsitively saturated ink. This first color is clay. So just, you know, deepens, adds some depth. And then I'm going to add a bit of terracotta, which is a much deeper color. Love. And these will soften a bit and dry back. They won't be quite as intense as they show when they're first applied, first wet. And then once I've got that, I'm going to take some Perfection ink and I'm going to blend that on these pieces just to give the stem a different color. So blend that on there. And then I just got to glue them together. So wiping up my mess as I go, and then adhering these together with liquid glue. And I talked about this in, I think it was one of our recent live. This is Simon Says Stamps Positively Perfect craft glue. I put it in one of these containers so I can use it in my precision glue press. Love it. Love it. I'm loving this glue, and I still love it because I got a lot of questions about that. I really like my precision glue press. For me, game changer for my hands. Ugh, so good. So I adhere these together, and then I'm going to show these glow with my little black light too, because I bought the black light. I'm going to keep using it and show you guys. So yeah, it's so fun. Although my camera does freak out. Same with like trying to take photos. My camera like just loses its mind. It's like, what are you trying to do? You know? But still, it's so fun. It's so fun. So now, mushroom stems. Like I said, I have done many, many videos, and there'll probably be more coming because I love this die set and the ideas don't stop. So I'm going to keep using it. So I used Simon's Slate cardstock, very, very dark gray, to cut the undersides of the mushroom caps and the stems. And then over that, I blended some black ink, just again to give it that moody, deep, look. And then for the tops of the mushrooms, I'm using my Tonic Black Sapphire glitter paper. This stuff is so good. And I've shown, and you can see there, I keep one of my specialty cardstocks, but I do this with all cardstock because I always end up using it. I keep every little teeny itty bitty scrap because I end up using it for a little die cut, little bat or a star or whatever. So I die cut the tops of the mushrooms from that. So now we've got these like black glittery mushrooms. Love it. And I did do a couple extras. Same with the pumpkins. I did one extra little pumpkin and then a couple of the smaller mushrooms. And those will be going on the inside of the card. So I adhered these all together with the liquid glue. So I've got my little mushrooms. And then I'm using what's the next one? This is the Grand Corner Leaves wafer die set. and I die cut that from Simon's Green Apple cardstock. And I'm blending on that same Perfection ink first, just kind of dragging it along from the base of the leaf out. Again, this just adds, depth. So added that, and then I'm going to go in with Field ink, which is darker. Again, just to add more depth. You could stop here, but then I'm going to add black ink, which I know freaks people out, but I encourage you, experiment with it. It's fun sometimes. And again, for Halloween cards, we can go as dark and moody as we want, So I did those 2 shades. It looks great. But the difference when you add just a smidge of black, I'm not pressing my brush like really hard and like saturating the brush, like just tapping it really lightly and just adding just a bit. And like, look at how much of a difference that makes, just adding that depth to it. Love it. Love it. So I did that, and then I'm going to add just a smidge of the black ink to those pumpkins as well, because I just really liked how this turned out. So, and again, I'm not like oversaturating my brush, like barely touching the ink pad with it. In fact, with these, I just was like tapping it on the lid there where I've got some excess ink, and then just a light little bit, just like a dusting of ink along the bottom of these little pumpkins. So after I've got all that, I die cut the web background using the largest of the nested domed arches frames, wafer dies. Say that 3 times fast. So I die cut that, and then I die cut 2 other pieces of black cardstock to get just the frame, so I could stack it up a bit, just to give it that little extra, again, just a little extra dimension, really. And then I took one of the pieces left over from die cutting the frames, and I put it in my MISTI with the grip mat this time, because now we're using clear stamps. And another very much oldie but goodie favorite, the Handlettered Halloween stamp set. I've used this one a bajillion times. So I stamped the Hey Pumpkin sentiment after using my anti-static powder tool. And then I'm heat embossing this with some of Simon's Detail White embossing powder, melting that with my heat tool. I'll buff off that excess anti-static powder with my little microfiber cloth, and then I will die cut this with the coordinating wafer die. And I'd also stamped the large Halloween word from the same set. I'd stamped it onto the green apple cardstock with black ink, and then die cut that. And then my card base is also going to be black cardstock. I talk about this. I don't often do leave the insides of my cards. If it's a dark card base, like black or whatever dark cardstock, I'll usually line it with either lighter cardstock or usually white. But this time I was like, we're going with it. When I send this card out, I will just use a gel pen to write to the recipient. That will show up on the black. And because that was just how I wanted it to be. So I stamped the happy word with just white pigment ink, adhered to Halloween. And then I had another little branch that I die cut from a scrap and then ink blended. So I'm going to adhere that, my little mushrooms and my little pumpkin. And yes, this could totally be a card front. Sometimes the amount of stuff I put on the insides of my cards end up counting as an entire card on its own. Just depends on my mood. And you guys know me and Halloween. I will go just completely over the top. So I adhered all of that. And now I'm going to start building my scene and adhering everything to the card base. And this card base is A2 size, so 4¼ by 5½ inches. So I adhered my glow in the dark web panel, and then I'm going to adhere the frame. And then I'm going to adhere my leaves and my mushrooms and my little pumpkins. And it just, as it all comes together, it's so fun. So fun. So get all those little bits adhered. I just run adhesive kind of, down the spines of things, letting things kind of pop up and build their own little bits of dimension without bulking everything out too much. And then I'll start adhering my little mushrooms and my pumpkins. I'm going to leave some space for the sentiment, but I'm not going to adhere the sentiment yet because of course we're going to add splatter. Obviously. So I'm going to get all these adhered into place. And then once I've got these adhered, we're gonna add 2 types of splatter. So I'm gonna use the Simon Says Stamps Positively Perfect White Splatter Medium. You always got to remember, shake this up really well or stir it up really well before you use it to because pigments settle, all that kind of stuff, because this is liquid. So shook it up really well. I've got my card base in my splat box, and then I just dip my fan brush in there and add just a nice healthy dose of splatter to this card. And then The second type of splatter we're going to use is some Crackling Campfire Distress Paint. Love. I haven't used my distress paints in a long time, and I'm pretty much only use them for splatter. They're fun. So, shook that up really well because it's been sitting for a while. And then added just a smidge of that to my palette. Added just a smidge of water. Not very much. And then splattered this onto the background as well. And it just... this was fun. This was fun. So, did all of that. And then I just got to let the splatter dry. And while I was doing that, normally I originally was just going to add the sentiment, maybe some bling, call it a day. But I also pulled out the little Bat Trio die set and Simon's Silver Vellum. They released some specialty vellums whenever that was. I've shown them in multiple videos, talked about it all. So this is a silver one. It's so pretty. It's almost opaque, but not quite. But I wanted to make it a little bit darker. So I just took the black ink and lightly blended it on the front of this. Normally I would say like blend, inks, or if you're using markers, whatever, with vellum, like do that on the back. This time I just went right on the front. It's a little bit finicky when you're trying to add ink to vellum because vellum is just a very different beast than cardstock, but it does work. You got to let it dry is the big thing too. Like any little, like even my fingernail would make like marks on these, but I would just buff it away with the brush and we were good. So I added that bit of ink and then I'm just going to adhere these with liquid glue. And again, because this vellum is practically opaque and you only need like the teeniest bit of glue because it's vellum, it's super lightweight. Like these little bats weigh nothing. So the teeniest bit of glue just on the bodies so that their wings are popped up. And then again, reverse tweezers for the win. And then I just got to press them in place. And filming kind of straight down like this, they almost like fade into like the background of this card. But again, at the end, I'll tilt it and everything and you can just see it like much better. So pop those into place just like so. Again, I'm so excited to finally be officially starting my Halloween series. I had so much fun. If you guys could see the disaster I made, I still have. Even as I'm doing this voiceover, I have stuff everywhere. Those skeleton hands and the skull are like right behind me and like stuff's on the floor. It's like my craft room my space exploded because I was diving through my Halloween bin and it's a good time. It's a good time. I'll figure it out. Anyway, adhered the sentiment. And then for the last little bit of bling, I'm adding some Pawsitively Dazzling gems in Mandarin. So kind of figured out my placement and where I wanted to put just a few of them. And then once I was happy with where they were, I'm going to pick these up with my little embellishment wand and then adhere them into place with little dabs of the glue. And then we just got to let the glue dry. And this card is complete. So, first Halloween card and video for 2025. Official. Love it. We got glow in the dark and black glitter and splatter and my mushrooms and the spider web and just all the things. All the things. This was so fun. And yeah, it glows in the dark. Can you get any better than that? I love it. I love it. So, like I mentioned in the intro, I will have links to all the things in the description box below the video. I'll link to the other stuff I mentioned in the end screen at the very end. So you can check that out if you're interested. Thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. I appreciate it a ton, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!